Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg, and you're in for a treat. As we're now in 2025, we have some big Star Wars updates. I've taken a few days off talking about the news because we've been focused on Skeleton Crew, but today we do have some interesting news. But first, following episode 6, Jod is leading Brutus and his crew to Atatin. We don't know if they're going to make it all the way, if the coordinates are right, but that is where they're headed. And then on the other side, now the kids have escaped with the Onyx Cinder from Lanupa, they're also headed back home. KB mentioned she memorized the coordinates from Tak Rennod's lair. We pretty much know the old pirate shanty about him is true. SM-33 holds so many memories and secrets of his former captain, but there are also so many questions. Did he become the supervisor on Atatin for a time, and what happened to him? Is he really dead? To my mind, the obvious answer is yes. I think he was around hundreds of years ago. SM-33's recollection of the galaxy seems to imply this. But I have to admit, the show is leaving us on edge. There are still mysteries about him to be answered. Someone who is to most pirates just a myth. It's out of desperation, greed, and hunger that Brutus is trusting Jod, that both Atatin and the legend of Tak Rennod are true. They want the old Republic mint. But who knows, there might be a twist. I don't know if you guys remember, but the other day I shared with you a photo that suggests Tak Rennod was a Weequay. And today, my dear friends, we have an even clearer photo that proves this is true. Before Skeleton Crew came out, there were rumours we're going to see Hondo Ohnaka, but I reckon leakers got the costume design confused. They're the same species, but not the same character. But imagine a situation where Hondo exploits the legend and takes on the alias Tak Rennod for both his own gain and to make people fear him. We do have a lot more Skeleton Crew to discuss, and now a massive bit of news. After weeks and weeks of doomer statistics about the performance of Skeleton Crew, it turns out that more people than ever before are discovering the show for the first time. Over the Christmas holiday and after episode 6, the show is now #1 on Disney+. That might not be saying much to a lot of fans who understand how these things work, but it's still a remarkable achievement nonetheless, particularly when you take into account the viewership after the first 3 or 4 episodes, and now it's going up. This, on top of the positive reception, could turn Jon Watts and Chris Ford's hopes of a second season into reality. It depends on if Disney deems this a success. Is it going to be deemed profitable enough? The most recent third-party analytics come from Flix Patrol, which demonstrate the show is improving in terms of viewership and overall performance. A surprising upward trend for the last week of December and the first couple of days of the new year. And it's even ranked above Deadpool and Wolverine on Disney+. Screen Rant have added, it's worth noting Skeleton Crew had massive competition. And yet, on top of ranking first on Disney+, it is now the number 15 ranked show across big streaming services. Here's the list. Beast Games on Prime Video #1, Fly Me to the Moon on Apple TV, Squid Game Season 2 No Surprise and #3 on Netflix, Secret Level on Amazon, then we go all the way down to number 15, Star Wars Skeleton Crew. We never expected the show to get the same numbers as Mando or Book of Boba Fett, but taking into consideration the position it was in just a few weeks ago, the upward shift is such a glow up, as the kids would say. So what does this mean? A big win for Star Wars? Maybe a big win for Disney+? Well, in the eyes of Lucasfilm and Disney, it was a bit of a gamble dropping an episode on Christmas Eve and then New Year's, but it seems to have paid off. I think the real test is next week's episode, because it indicates if the holiday viewers stuck around. The fans who are already invested in the show, we're already watching it, we're already on board. But those fans who put it on over Christmas, maybe discovered the show for the first time, there has been an upward trend of them, but are they going to stick around? And the viewership on the final episode, episode 8 in 2 weeks' time, is going to be the real test. And then we'll have an overarching idea of how the show performed. And that will give us a good indication if Disney's going to renew. They seem to be very willing to cancel shows if they're not performing, if there's no return on investment, but Skeleton Crew could be an interesting case, because reviews have been very, very positive, overwhelmingly positive. And I do just want to clarify something. After the reports of Andor Season 1 and 2 being so expensive, fans have wondered, well, how expensive was Skeleton Crew? $136 million, adjusted for inflation, $140 million. So a tad cheaper than Mando Season 2, cheaper than Season 1, way cheaper than The Acolyte, and cheaper than the Tony Gilroy show. but still more expensive than The Mandalorian's third season, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan. So from Disney's perspective, yes, the show was pretty pricey, but nothing compared to The Acolyte. So the lowdown is this: more and more people are watching Skeleton Crew. It is slowly rising the charts. Fans who are invested and watching it, they're very much loving the show, so it's got that going for it. And so to my mind, there is a solid case why it should be renewed for season 2. But now we're in 2025, guys, and Star Wars have just announced for the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith and the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens, they're going to be celebrating the milestones with merch. I wouldn't be surprised if Revenge of the Sith comes back into cinemas, probably sometime in May. I think that's going to be a very easy box office win for Lucasfilm, and I can imagine they're going to celebrate both movies at Star Wars Celebration in Japan. And of course in April we have Andor Season 2. So many exciting things to look forward to. This is going to be a much more triumphant year for Star Wars than last year. How do you guys feel about this? And is there anything specific you want them to do for these anniversaries? Let me know down below. So now, my dear friends, let's talk a bit more about Skeleton Crew Episode 6. Something I've been noticing across recent Star Wars canon, whether it's The Mandalorian, Andor Season 1, a handful of other projects and now Skeleton Crew, is how prevalent the legacy of The Last Jedi really is. The most controversial Star Wars movie by Rian Johnson, the movie that some fans say divided the fandom for good, a movie from which the franchise some say has not recovered. But regardless of your thoughts on it, many of the alien designs, especially from Canto Bight, have been recycled into recent shows. I've covered a few specific ones from the more recent episodes, but even in a show like Andor, which sits on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of fan reception compared to The Last Jedi, there were a few alien species from Canto Bight at the party Mon Mothma was attending. So it's pretty widespread. And now in the most recent episode of Skeleton Crew, there were 2 more, and one of them is more important than you think. So when Jod emerges from Tak Rennod's lair, he's greeted by pirates and some of the guests staying at the Lanupa resort. And what was, I think, the most distinctive, instantly recognizable creature was this lady over here. This insectoid is the same species as Ubla Mulbro, the singer from episode 8. She appears in a rather comedic sequence when Finn and Rose are riding through the Canto Bight casino on Fathius. So while the creature was recycled, did you know, guys, this species, the Zedek, have existed in Star Wars Legends since 1989. They did look very different back when they were first introduced, and the origin of the species is a brief description in Troy Denning's book Galaxy Guide No. 4, Alien Races, a supplementary guide to the Star Wars role-playing game. And something even crazier you might not be aware of is how much backstory this character has. I doubt the character from Skeleton Crew is exactly the same as the one from episode 8. There's about 20 years difference in the timeline, but both characters were rich and both liked to spend time in luxurious resorts. Females of the species would travel to planets like this with engorged eggs in search of a hatching partner, and the character standing to her right belongs to yet another species from The Last Jedi, but was reduced to a deleted scene, the sauna bathhouse, and the character in question was a masseuse. Finn and Rose are disgusted by the sight of what's going on, and did you know, my dear friends, Rian Johnson was asked why he didn't leave it in. He admitted that while he found the scene fun, it was a bit too much. It just made the whole thing far too extended. And he says the inevitable job of any director is having to make unfortunate cuts. And while I personally wasn't a fan of episode 8, the alien designs were not the problem. In fact, along with some of the legacy aliens that made a return in Skeleton Crew, it's great to see these repurposed and to give them a better association amongst fans. But all that said, my dear friends, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you had fun. Did you enjoy the news, the alien Easter egg breakdown? Let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. Check me out on socials at StarWarsMeg1 on Twitter. The link to my Patreon is down below. And I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.